Thank you, Terrance. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Not a problem, man. It's been a long time coming.
Dude, it has been. We've been trying to plan this for a little bit, and I'm excited that you have been able to come on. And we've had some really awesome conversations. So to give a little bit of context, I work with you, and we have numerous times in the break rooms just talked about like spirituality.
We've gone down rabbit holes of shit.
Trust in the process and all that. And so those are some things that I know that we're definitely going to get into on this. But give a quick little introduction to yourself for the audience so that they know kind of who you are and vaguely what you're about, and then we can kind of get more into the details.
Sure. I'm Terrance Wilborn. You can find me on anything that's social media. I am T. Randall. Mm-hmm. I'm just a cool guy. I'm a washed dad, man. I just want to be cool and just live my life happy. That's all, man.
Yeah, and that's really the goal, isn't it? It's just trying to live normally and live happily. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't living that happy life right now. You know, we're all struggling to find meaning in this world, and especially now more than ever. So
when it comes to people about like attention, and when it comes to duality of am I really living in this reality or am I living in a dream world? Mm-hmm. It's tough, dude. It's tough. I've seen some people just literally break down. Yeah.
Easily, and especially with the internet, you're seeing these carefully curated profiles and these just like perfect versions of people, these unrealistic expectations, these photoshopped versions of lives that you're comparing yourself constantly. So you're almost never getting a break from this comparison.
It's a highlight reel. How can I compare to that?
Exactly.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. And no one ever likes to share the struggle. And I personally like to. So although there is a line, like some things you got to keep to yourself, and Brene Brown talks all about like people have to earn certain vulnerabilities with you, and I agree with that. And she specifically talks about the differences between sharing yourself for like a learning experience, right, versus sharing yourself to work out your problems, which is not fair to the other person, right? You're like putting that on them. But sharing something that you've learned so that other people can learn from it, that's power and vulnerability, and that's okay to do online.
But not exploiting a situation.
Yeah, not like, hey, I just want somebody to tell me I'm okay, or like, that's not the right reason to do it, right? There's a difference, I think, especially when doing it social, like on
searching
social
for
media.
validation.
Yes.
Am I right or am I wrong? I really want to know if I'm right.
Exactly. I really want confirmation that what I'm doing is fine.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's what most people want, right? Most people are seeking validation on some level. But yeah, so we both are spiritual beings for sure, and I want to ask a little bit about how you got into your spirituality and what that really means to you as a whole. I know it's a big question, so you can break it down in a smaller chunk first, and we can go down some rabbit holes with it.
Sure, absolutely. So in the beginning, it was my parents, my grandparents. My grandmother's Catholic. Mm-hmm. My mother we went to a spiritual church, but it's more like Baptist. Mm-hmm. So just getting a gathering of what it means and what it is from that. But then coming off of it being such a institution of where you have to follow rules and X, Y, and Z. So kind of taking away and being my own self and saying, I like it. I like the idea of it, but who am I and where do I fit in with this and how can I take from it? So it's a constant journey regardless. Like I'm still evolving as a spiritual person and a spiritual being every day. It's a struggle, but it's life. It's
an infinite journey you can go down. Like there's never an end to it. The end is when you die. And even then, like you could argue that that's not even the end, but meaning the end of,
technically it's not.
Yeah. The end of this physical form for sure. And you're always going down different rabbit holes of learning, what things mean and certain lessons that you'll learn 7,000 different ways from different experiences that are all fundamentally the same lesson.
I think everything's generally the same. It comes down to the same premise, but you have to go about it and think about it in a different perspective or a lens like we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. So if you just can't gather the simple baseline, you'll never figure it out. And you're never going to completely figure it out, but you won't figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a figuring out in the sense that like, that there's no end destination. So, but figuring out your process on how you continually go down that journey and learn new things. I think there is a figuring out of that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have everything figured out. There's a total
100%.
Total difference. And I watched like a video of, are you familiar with Sadhguru?
I don't think so.
So I post quotes from him sometimes in my Instagram stories. But he's somebody who Michael introduced me to, who was a guest on my podcast twice. And he talked about like the story of the mango tree. And the idea is that if you saw a mango tree at any point prior to its fruiting, you would never know it was a mango tree. You know, the shit's ugly as fuck all the way up until it blooms and it produces the fruit. And so he uses that metaphor as like an explanation of like, well, you have to water this tree and you have to let it set its roots in, and you have to give it time and patience, and it's going to go through, you know, winter and then come out this spring and then eventually blossom.
And you can't prune it when it's too early.
Yes.
Yeah. You gotta fuck it up, because if it only has that one time to bear that fruit, it's fucked.
Exactly.
It's lived this full life and you just snatched it away.
Exactly. So Sadhguru has some really interesting ideas about with enlightenment, of like, you know, are you enlightened? And it's like anybody who claims they're enlightened, like, no, you're not. You know, if you claim that you're enlightened, then you're already not. But that being said, somebody like him, you could argue is enlightened because he knows he's always learning. You know, he knows he's a student of the game, and he has this presence of mind about him that seems like, and it's hard to know because unless you hang out with the guy, you really don't know.
Yeah.
But it seems like he, at least on the, like you said, the premise of things, seems to get it. Whatever that it is, he seems to get it about life. And so he, therefore, is really joyous all the time. He's constantly sharing awesome ideas with people and changing a lot of people's lives. And he's helping other people. And he's doing it, to me, it seems really authentic. You know, obviously, you got to make some money. And so there's always I have a little bit of weirdness with gurus and stuff. But
yeah.
But with him in particular, he comes across as very authentic to me. He doesn't come across as a guy who's just trying to make some money or trying to hustle people. So I think he kind of has the premise. But what would you consider the premise for yourself? Like that basic premise of understanding.
Basic premise of understanding is kind of, for me, just being there, being present in the moment, enjoying what's given at the time. Yeah, sometimes I get deep in thought and I get lost in it, but just always making sure that I'm present, I'm happy, I'm cool, I'm good, and not getting caught up or being hard on myself, because I can be, because I'm pretty focused about where I want to be. So then if it doesn't happen at a certain time, I have to come to grips, come to terms, forgive myself for it, and just go and accept it. If I can't accept it, then I'll be stuck, you know? It sucks.
Well, and where do you want to be? Like,
okay. Ideally, I have my family, so I'm good. I have my wife, I have my kids. So better financially is something I'm looking for now.
Sure.
And then just being able to, so that will create the experience of being able to travel more and buy some of the things that we want, but not everything some of the things that we need, not that we want, you know. Let me rephrase that. Yeah. Because you want to make sure that your kids are happy, but you want to make sure they have a little bit of struggle so that they can understand how to work, how to grind, how to be in have some kind of adversity, so you can get through it and be better. You know, if you don't have adversity, sometimes I don't feel that you can be a better person, because everything's just given to you, so you don't know how to figure it out.
And otherwise you'll figure it out in other ways, and you'll have a skewed view of how it all really works out for the average person. You know, most people are not in the 1%, hence the fact that it's 1%. So, you know, for the rest of the 99% of us, we all have to go through different struggles and things, and not being able to get things when we want them, and to then have the patience to manifest them through hard work, dedication, perseverance.
You said have the patience to learn to get to have the patience, man.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah, you have to. And patience was something that I honestly learned in my previous job, where, you know, I was in a difficult spot, getting yelled at all the time, and also having to talk through things on the phone. So imagine trying to solve somebody's problem without being able to visually see it, and then them getting frustrated with you. You know, so that taught me a lot of patience in that microcosm, and I have since applied that patience to my vision and my dream. But when I first moved here, I didn't have the patience at all. I was like, all right, I'm in Chicago now, this is when the dream happens. And
have you always been like that? Like, this is the dream, I'm just going for it, just no looking back?
Yeah, kind of. But I wasn't as good at being focused with it or knowing what the next steps were. But I always knew that I wanted to do something and be my own thing. And I definitely learned in college more or less like the creative angle that I wanted to go. Yeah. But I didn't really know how to accomplish it, and I didn't really know what the path was. That's something that I've figured out since moving here, really. I feel like that was when I kind of like leveled up my understanding of what that really means and the amount of effort and time and persistence that's going to be in manifesting that.
It took practice.
It took a lot of practice. And luckily I learned meditation like a year prior to moving here. So it was like I was already kind of in that journey of like learning how my thoughts worked and how my brain tended to get excited about things and then it not happen right away and then be disappointed. Like I've learned to manage those expectations now. So now I'm totally okay with this shit taking forever.
Do you think you will be here if you didn't have meditation?
No.
No?
No.
You don't think you'll figure out some other type of way?
No.
All right.
I don't. I mean, I don't think I'd be where I'm at now. No.
No.
I've learned, I'm an intense guy.
Yeah. So you got to mellow out.
I need to mellow out. Yeah. And so the gym was like a form of meditation, but it wasn't enough. I definitely needed the actual conscious, like noticing my mind, being the observer of the observer and seeing my thoughts and realizing that I don't have to identify with the thoughts. That was like such an important part of my journey and something I'm continually learning, but that's the thing. It's a practice. It's not a finished. It's a practice.
You'll never be the guru of meditation. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Because there's always more to learn. Whether it's about you or whether about helping others, there's always more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a new level of understanding when you're teaching somebody else. When you're able to share the knowledge and you're able to simplify it, that's when you have true understanding of what you're talking about.
That's the next level patience.
It is. Still not there yet.
No.
Still not there yet. But, I'm a good student. I think I'm a good student.
That's fair.
I think I learn.
That's fair.
Yeah. So for you, you definitely grew up with kind of like the more traditional religious background. I never went to church or anything like that. So what was church like growing up, and how did you view it as a kid versus how do you view it now?
As a kid, it was a big orchestra. It was a big play. It was a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. My mom was a part of the ministry, so she was on the finance committee, the administration. So I would be in the back room seeing what was going on, hearing all these things. It's like, man, this is a big deal, but it's just a business. So once I got to knowing that it was just a business, I started focusing on other business people and how they ran and how they live their lives. And so I just had to think of everything as a business. I have to live my life like a business. I have to work my business like a business. I have to work everything that I do as a business, because if I don't, there's no structure and it just falls apart. It's
true. Structure is important. Structure and like scheduling, time management, right? So when you would go to church, what made you feel most connected to like God as a whole? Like what about church specifically did you feel like you connected most to, like that ultimate spirit?
It's the music.
The
music for sure, man. And it's when you're in that community of people who are everybody's kind of doing, it's like a cult. Hypothetically, it's just like a cult.
Yeah.
So once everybody's in that worship and you're doing it all and you kind of feel it, you get a good movement, you get a good feeling, and you feel something and it feels brand new. But it could be something that you can experience it yourself if you do meditation or if you're searching for more. But when you're in that realm of everybody just doing it, it just kind of comes upon you, feels good, and you get that feeling, and you just keep going, and you search for more. So you go ask somebody, and they may tell you they have a word for you, or they may give you just some advice, and it just keeps going and going from there.
Certainly, and it's like have you ever been to a J. Cole concert?
I have, in the beginning and like somewhere in the middle. In the beginning, he used to sit on a stool and give you whatever he had.
Yeah.
Then I want to say somewhere down the middle around what album was that, man? I can't remember. Born Sinner.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he got more animated. He brought other people through. It was good. It was a great experience. I actually wanted to try drugs at this one, but I didn't.
Yeah. So J. Cole concert to me, one of the best concerts I ever went to, and it was because of the atmosphere. It was because of that connected feeling. Was in Tallahassee. It was at Coliseum, which anybody who went to FSU knows what Coliseum is. It's like a big club, and it's like a pretty big venue, but it's not a stadium or anything. So it's definitely still intimate.
Like 1,000?
I would put it in hundreds.
Okay.
Like several hundred, but like I don't know if I put 1,000, but it could be 1,000. I don't really know the capacity. It's been years now, but I just remember everyone in there knew the lyrics to even Boss's songs or Kaz or Omen. Like, yeah, all the lesser Dreamville people, which, now they just dropped that Dreamville project, which...
Revenge.
Dude, It's good. It's so good.
I like it.
I like it. There's a lot of tracks that I'm like, these are good. But it was like an atmosphere that, I mean, he tweeted about it later too, where he was like, yo, the energy in that room was crazy, because it was just like nothing but love. It was really just like love. Everybody was like, we're all about what J. Cole's talking about. We all feel his energy. We feel his spirit. And
the key word you said was energy, though, man. That's what it's about. So that was the word energy I was missing. Mm-hmm. So when you're in that corporate realm of just being and feeling that spirit, it's the energy, man. And then it just goes and it transfers over to something.
It does. And the energy doesn't have to be this like new age energy, man.
No, man. It's just a wave. I feel it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I know what those people mean. So I have got one foot in that realm, and I got one foot in the scientific realm. You know, I like to think I kind of balance them both. But there is an energy. There is a thing, a vibe. There is, you know, I don't know how you quantify that. I don't know. I
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if there is like a way to measure it with some instrument of some kind, but it definitely exists. And when you realize the power of your energy and how your energy is directly interacting with the energy of everyone else, people you walk by on the street even. Have you ever walked by somebody who just everything on their face reads just like,
yeah,
you can feel it. If you're really like mindful and meditative and you're not just like you got your headphones in and some shit, like you can feel that energy. And when you tune into that level of awareness, which I would argue
that's the issue.
It's the
people
level of awareness.
Aren't aware. Mm-hmm. Our phones are an extension of us, so we're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. And then whether we have our headphones on or we're just thinking so deep in thought about something else, you're missing what's right in front of you. Exactly. There could be a pothole and you're just not paying attention. I've seen people just walk into shit.
Yep.
I've done it before.
Yep.
Not paying attention, so I want to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean, being in the moment, you know?
Yes, raising your awareness. And that really is... That was one of the fundamental lessons that I learned with meditation and psychedelics combined, like was increasing my awareness of what was around me, not just an autopilot and accepting things as they were, but really trying to look at like an unfiltered lens of what is actually happening. What is the external stimuli that I'm seeing out and about, like without me throwing my own filters on, without me throwing my own preconceived notions of what I believe. Oh, that's a Walgreens. Like, I could just take it as that's a Walgreens, and I walk by a Walgreens.
Yeah.
Not to give them free advertising, but you know, like you could do that, or you could walk by that same Walgreens and be like, that's an interesting brick, or you know, and you can tune your awareness into what is drawing details. Your attention. Yeah, the little details that make it what it is. So, yeah, I think raising your awareness is like a big part of the growth and the journey. How do you think that you raised your own awareness? And like, was there an experience that really, do you think that like leveled up your awareness in life?
Once I started to dial in, to focus in on some of these other masterminds, quote unquote, like Tony Robbins and people of some sort, just other business leaders, Jim Rohn,
Gary Vee.
Dude, yeah. Yeah. Well, even back then, I was thinking of more like, what's this guy's name? John C. Maxwell. People like that. You start to try to get in their mind and think how they think. They take a step back and they take time to process, you know? So I would get into arguments with people and I'm like, you know what? Give me a minute. I don't want to say some shit that really just is off the wall because I'm angry. Let's take the feeling, the emotion out of this. Let's take the offense out of it. Let's take everything of that and I'll give it to you just raw, unfiltered. This is what it is. This is how I feel. Boom, let's go. But it's just being on that journey and just knowing that I wanted more for myself. So if I had to study these people and this is what comes from it, then I know that I had to just do something. So I've tried meditation. I don't think I'm the best at it.
No one ever does. Dude, no one thinks they're good at meditating.
And I don't know what it is. It's just sometimes I find myself in it, and then other times I'm too aware. I'm in the room, but I'm in the room with everybody else. You know what, if that makes any sense? I'm in the room with myself, but there are other people there meditating, and I'm in it. I'm there with me. Or I'm in the room with everybody and I'm in everybody else's shit. Like, I wonder what they're thinking about. And, I wonder what's going on over here.
Sure. But the moment that you realize that that's what you were doing is the moment that you begin again. You know, that's the whole point, is that you're never going to not be distracted. You're totally going to always be distracted. That's just, your brain is going to think. It's a thinker. That's what it does. It's literally, it's like asking an engine to not propel you forward, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to do that. It's designed to do that. So the brain is designed to think. But what you can do is increase your awareness of when that happens. So when you start going down some thought loop or some rabbit hole of some kind, the second you realize you just did that, you begin again and you go back to the breath or whatever the object of meditation is.
The breath is important, I feel. The
breath is great. Something that Daniel and I were talking about, who was also on the podcast, Daniel Newman, we work with. He was talking about a really awesome meditation he had where he was just focusing on sounds. And I actually think that can equally be really powerful, where you tune into like the natural sounds of what's going on around you, even if it's like cars in a city. You don't have to be in a perfect quiet nature, and just hearing the sounds, but not like trying too hard to identify each sound. Just like it becomes one big sound thing, and you'd be surprised how much you can just get lost in that, of like not even, you'll lose the sense of self just like in that, where you're just kind of, you're hearing all of these sounds with your eyes closed and you're in the zone, and it's just birds chirping, cars going by, people walking.
You've got a meditation voice. You can record that shit, dude. If I close my eyes right now and I'm like in one of those tanks, I'm like just listening to your voice.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know. I'm not gonna rule that out. I do want to do voiceover work. That's something that I have been neglecting super hard. But that might be something that I set a new intention for. Now that I'm a little more focused in what I'm doing, I'd like to create a demo and maybe just try to get a couple voiceover gigs here and there, because I want to be in video games. I think it'd be so fun to be like a protagonist or some villain or some cool shit. Yeah, I'd love to play a villain, because like I'm not an evil guy in real life, so it's fun to play the evil guy.
You want to get that shit out, man. It's the shit you think of, the horrible shit we think of as humans.
Yes.
You want to get it out some way, somehow.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Carl Jung's shadow?
No.
So the concept of the shadow is that everybody has a shadow, right? Anybody who has light is casting a shadow. And that shadow is a useful part of your personality. It's a useful part of who you are, and it is inseparable from you. The same way that, the yin and the yang.
Is it like an alter ego in a sense?
Kind of. I mean, it's just
but not the ego being the ego of, but there being
it's like the dark side. It's like the dark side of you. But you can actually take the shadow and you can use it for your advantage. That doesn't mean you indulge it and you give in to its desires. But what you do is you take its energy and you redirect it.
And that's every good, there's a bad.
Yeah. But there's some like really good things about some of the bad parts of us that you can use to work to your advantage, and you can make it work for you rather than against you. Because if you're constantly fighting your shadow, you're fighting yourself. It's not. It's a hard thing. There's a lot of nuance and comes with dealing with the shadow, because obviously it doesn't mean give in to your desires of doing the shitty thing, but knowing that there are some darker aspects to our personality that you can tap into. You can use that power. You just have to learn how to use it where it like satisfies it while also not is self-destructive.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when they give into the shadow, they give into the self-destructive aspects of it, and that can be very dangerous.
Go down that rabbit hole and get addictive. It could be addictive.
Yes. Yeah. I would argue that some of our biggest addictions are part of the shadow. But finding a way to quell the shadow while not trying to suppress it, because suppressing it is going to go the opposite direction. It's going to push back even harder, like Newton's laws, right?
We focus a lot on balance, man. That's all of our conversations, I think. The baseline of it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the baseline of
life,
reality, life, everything is balance, right? How do you find balance?
Who knows?
Right?
It's different for everybody.
How do you specifically find it? Because I think people can learn from different strategies. I think they've heard my balance. I talk I talk enough on this podcast. But yeah, what's like your way of finding balance in yourself, whether it's activities you do or ways that you kind of keep yourself grounded?
Yeah, for sure. So I try to find balance in, first, some silence. Give me some silence so I can kind of gather myself, my thoughts, know that I'm going to attack some things, know that I may not get to some things, just come to grips with that, and then start just going. Just not do whatever, but then I can release myself, if that makes any sense. And then from there, I always try to make sure if there's 24 hours in a day that I have at least 3 to 4 to myself, that I'm doing what I want to do that makes me happy, so that I don't look back and be like, damn, I did this for her, I did this for him, I did this for them. where was me? Where do I fit into the picture? This is my life, so I should get something done. So I think it's important to take time for yourself, whatever it is. I don't care if you spend an hour to read, an hour to spend with the favorite person you want to be with, an hour to go eat the favorite shit you want to do. I don't care. Just make sure you're happy doing it. And that's what I do. So that's really been good for me as a baseline. And just other than that, just being happy, man. Just some people really get caught up in the bullshit of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes them down, man. Don't get caught up in that shit. It's not going to be there forever. Your life won't be here forever. That shitty situation won't be here forever. So you got to figure it out. Just either accept it, change it, or move on.
Dude, 100%. And if you don't give that time, guess what builds up? Resentment.
Yeah.
Anger.
And then you become, then that shadow starts to tap you on the shoulder like, hey, let's go fuck this shit up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where then the self-destruction comes in. And if you don't take that time for yourself and you don't unplug, and nowadays we don't ever unplug because our devices are constantly stimulating us. It's like, oh, I can't meditate because my thoughts are always too active. It's like, yeah, because you never got off your phone all
intent.
day.
You have to be intent.
It's got to be a conscious decision to unplug. Yeah. It can't just be I unplugged because my phone died. It's got to be like, no, I unplugged because I specifically set my phone aside. I put it on Do Not Disturb. And I just wanted some time for myself. Like you said, whether it's reading or writing or drawing or playing a sport, exercising.
A video game. Don't care. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter what the activity is. It just has to be a conscious unplugging. And TV is probably the only one that doesn't count. It's the only one that doesn't count.
For some people, it does.
It's not unplugging. Scientifically, it's proven that it's not unplugging. And I read that in The Rise of Superman, which is by Stephen Kotler. I've talked about this book before. I talked about flow states before. And the only thing that will not allow you to take your mind off the problem, that's one of the steps in the flow cycle, is television. And it's because it alters your brain waves. So when you're watching television, it syncs it, and I don't remember which waves. It's been too long since I read the book, but it puts it in a certain brainwave state that is not actually unplugging from the problem. So I feel you. People can totally watch television. I'm not saying don't watch television.
They'll zone out. Let's just say they'll zone out.
It's zoning out, and it's not a conscious unplugging. Yeah. So there is a difference. By all means, watch TV. I watch TV too. I watch Game of Thrones. I watch all these other shows. Like I do it too, but I also then have conscious time that I'm not doing those things. So I just want to make that distinction. So that's a big part for your balance then. What are some goals that you have, like career-wise, on like where you really would like to spend your time and money into?
I love marketing. And it's the experiential side of it. So it's the event side, and it's the ideation of it. So that's where I really get a kick out of things. And post and pre-production, coming in, helping you set up I get a kick out of that. Yeah. Because you get to kick the shit, you talk, you find out more about yourself and another person, then it spins you into another conversation, and which spins you into another set of friends. You never know what happens, Yeah. So I think that just helps you bring your world into a bigger scope, rather than being in this small, tiny little microscope of it.
Yeah. We get stuck in our little spheres. We have our tiny little groups, and we hang out with our same people all the time, and every once in a while it's good to mingle with other people. No,
for sure. But as far as just that career-wise, just doing something in that realm, whether it be for myself, definitely I'm always going to have that. But working with the people that I want to work with and enjoying it, and hopefully getting paid so I can do just that only.
Yeah. And that's the goal too, right? It's like to find a way where the activity that you're doing actually pays the bill. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like I'm a big proponent of do it in the meantime, do it in the middle, and eventually you'll be able to make it full time. So by no means does that mean, hey, quit your job and recklessly just only do that.
I've made that mistake before.
Yeah, and haven't we all, man? But knowing that it's okay to take the safe bet for a little bit. It's okay to take a second and just do.
It's okay to have a side hustle.
Yeah, do it as a side hustle until it can become the main hustle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Don't just jump in the deep end, man. Go in the shallow waters.
Learn a little bit more, because I think some people get too full of themselves.
Yeah.
They spend, let's say, 3 to 5 years doing it. It's like, okay, I'm an expert now. I'm good. Let's go. Some of us, sure, whatever. But you jump off in that deep end, man. There's some sharks out there. Seriously, there's some people who are total shadows. They're manipulative. They do whatever, and they will fuck you over, and it's gonna just end you or ruin you. And it could be that point where this was your dream, this was it, and if it didn't happen at a certain time, that's it. You're done.
Yep. And that perception alone is enough to defeat you.
Yeah.
Because if you really believe that was the only moment, and that there's never going to be another one, which is already like faulty thinking. You should always know that anytime it doesn't work out for you in that moment, that it's because there's another moment around the corner that is probably going to work out better, where you're going to be more prepared. You're going to have taken that lesson, internalized it, and then prevented that from happening in the future.
Happened to me at 9. That early on. I was 9 years old. My godmother, she worked for a radio station. She was like, yeah, I can introduce you to some people. I'm like, I'm 8, I'm 9. Sure, let's do it. The guy never showed up to the breakfast or whatever. So I'm shit. I'm like, what the fuck? This is what I want to do in my life. I figured it out. Let's do it. Let's go. I really didn't know, you know?
You're 9.
I'm 9.
Yeah. You couldn't have known.
But I came to grips with it early, man. And that's what I kept pushing, you know? I kept going and learning. So I think that's what's put me on this journey now. You know, just being that spiritual person who's like, I know I need to learn about myself, about others, the best I can. I thought I wanted to be in psychology, but that's not it. But learning about people is the brain and how you work and how you function. I think it's cool, you know?
Sure. How'd you learn about yourself? You know, like was there a specific moment or a series of events that maybe like led you on really discovering who you actually are, like at the core?
Coming to grips early that my dad wasn't always there in my life, and then it was just my mom, my grandmother. So it's like, all right, maybe it'll be me. Maybe I can make a difference and change it. So trying to take that from there, like, okay, maybe I'll be the difference maker, and I can focus in, but I have to just figure it out, whatever it is. So I started pushing myself early to do it. Then you always get little, you know, you trip up, you fall, you have your stepping stones, and then you figure it out as you get older that, okay, now I realize what that was. And you start mixing in some other things like other people, and they start giving you perspective on what it is, and they share their journey, and it brings you into their light, and you can say, okay, now this makes more sense, and you just keep going from there.
You keep gaining greater context.
Yeah.
And like having the perspective, and I think it really is just holding the perspective of understanding that future events will make more sense in hindsight, and they always will, but you can never fault yourself for not knowing in the moment, because you had what you had with the knowledge and experience that you had at the time. And so you're going to make decisions that in hindsight you'd be like, I'm so dumb, how did I ever make that decision? But no, that was the whole thing, is that you now know that because you made that decision.
You have to. Yeah.
It's having that like larger perspective of knowing any time, any one good or bad event, because like sometimes we focus too hard on the good stuff, and it's like, you know, you're creating this impossible model that you're never going to be able to just sit in that ultra good state all the time. That's not possible. You know? So it's like knowing that whether it's good or bad, those things are just part of the larger context of your life, and it's an ever evolving narrative that you can continually write and rewrite the story. And I
agree, man.
Dude, you can rewrite the past memories. You know, you can rewrite them. You're not changing what happened, but I'm saying you can rewrite the context in the story.
I never thought about that.
Right?
And to that extent, yeah.
Because easily, let's say something that was like really shitty that happened to you, and for a long time you were bitter about it, and you're like, oh, I fucking hate that thing happened.
But
blah,
you were
blah.
looking at the wrong like context out of it.
Yes.
And then once you finally figured out, you can pull from it and say, damn. That wasn't it. It was this thing over here. Yeah, I get that now.
And it's like 20 years later, something could click where you're like, that's what that moment meant. That's why in this moment now, I'm understanding why I was behaving this way for these amount of years because of that experience. So many times we have these like past traumas in our life, and it doesn't mean that you had to have the most difficult childhood either. You could have a totally normal childhood, but you're still traumatized because as a child you are not equipped. You know, that you being 9 years old and not understanding that guy had his whole life and he had his own thing that probably is the reason why he couldn't go to that, and he was like, whatever, it's a 9-year-old. It's a 9-year-old, who cares? Like, he's not gonna. But for you, it's significant. And you didn't know that for him, he has all these other, you know, you don't really, as a 9-year-old, understand the other person's universe.
No, like with my kids, they don't understand what's going on. So my son, he's almost 2, but something doesn't happen his way, it's the end of the world. He's over-exaggerating everything, man. He's falling out.
He's 2.
He's 2. He doesn't know.
He can't.
He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's just what he wants, and that's it. You know? So I get it. Yeah, totally.
How has having a kid changed your perspective in life?
Man, it brings more focus into it for sure. It definitely makes you not second guess, but make sure that the next step you're taking is a proper step. Because you can fuck up, sure, but if it's just you, it doesn't matter. Like I could have not done without certain jobs and been okay. I can figure it out. But when you have other mouths to feed and you have other people to provide for, you have to think about that next move. How is this going to be when I don't make this, or how is it going to be if I do make this? Because it could be a detriment to their life. And that's the last thing you want to do, because that can be traumatizing for them, and they may hate or resent you, whatever it may be. So then that's something that you have to deal with, and some more pressure on you, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, so it's like holding that perspective of knowing that, that like putting yourself back in that place of the 9-year-old of like, well, from my child's perspective, they don't have the context to understand that there is a lot of other elements and variables going on. They're only going to see it as I didn't get my way.
Yeah, totally.
And so knowing how to kind of craft lessons or little nuggets of wisdom that hopefully they'll listen to until they stop, until they become a teenager and they completely rebel against you.
I'm not looking forward to that shit, man.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, no, you got him in the like curiosity stage right now, being 2. I mean, he's barely even, is he talking?
Oh, he talks, yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. So he's talking. So he's just starting to learn language. Yeah. That's such an early
And that's
phase.
my daughter. She's 6, so she's learning Spanish.
Oh.
And she's telling me, why doesn't he get this? I said, well, you don't get that in Spanish, so why would he get it in English? And this is what he's just trying to learn. So I was just trying to relate those things to her for him. And she's like, oh, now I get it. It makes sense. So it's just bringing that whole new concept of what is that I may understand that they don't, and have to break it down.
Yeah. And feeding it in a way that the child can understand, whatever the age is. You kind of scale the lesson to the age.
There was a guy I used to work with who I ran production, he ran talent. He would always say, all right, what you're saying sounds great, but talk to me like I'm 3. I don't know what that means. Give me baseline. I need layman's terms. So we would go back, go over, boom, 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 bam. Got it. Makes sense. Now we can execute. Because if you talk all this technical shit, it's going over my head. What are you saying? What do you need to get done? Yeah. You
got to break it down. You got to know your audience. It's all about the positioning. That's something I know. It's to bring in those terminology.
It's true though. It's true. Yeah.
It's true because you learn that there are different types of people. Okay. And that was something that was actually a powerful thing that I learned from the previous job before doing this one, was that there were different types of people that you have to adjust the way and the strategy that you would troubleshoot with them for. So, somebody is a more empathetic person, you have to kind of go off of the emotion aspect of it. If somebody's one of those more analytical, logical mind, like I need to know exactly why this is happening. I need to break down step by step of why this, that's a different kind of person. Then you have the person who likes to entertain, which means that they like to be loved. They like to have a little bit of fun. So you kind of have to go there with them while also solving their problem.
Yeah.
And so it's just always scaling to the audience, while also still remaining true to what you're trying to say. You can't lose the message in lieu of the way you're delivering it, because I think you can lose the message if you try to overly cater to that,
That happened to me and my wife early on in our relationship. We had to figure out how to speak to each other and when it was the appropriate time to help or when it was just the appropriate time to listen. So when she would bring something to me, I just want to solve
the problem. Yep.
So I would have to step back and say, hey, do you want me to help you or am I here just listening to you? So she appreciates that now because I intently don't just jump in and like, all right, let's get this done. This is what we got to do. She's like, no, I want to figure it out. Like, okay, cool. All right, I got it.
Yeah. So that's actually another really good thing to go into is like, how have you learned while being in a committed relationship? How have you learned about yourself and what is effective for maintaining a healthy relationship with your significant other?
Very good. I think I came to where's my wife? No. I've learned a lot about myself, man. I learned that I do have a lot of patience. I can be very stoic at times where I just don't show emotion, but it's because I know that there's a bigger outcome. And if I not break down, but if I break down now, then what will I do when that bigger situation comes? So just trying to balance between having some emotion, having some fun, having some just whatever it is at the time, and just not being so, all right, this is black and white. I got this. This is what we're going to do. I know you're mad because of this, but get over it because it's not that big of a deal. So it's just kind of always shifting gears, kind of being a moving, just
Sure.
a turning wheel at all times. But I just learned that I know that I'm good at that. I have a good emotional IQ, but sometimes I just get to the point of like, does it fucking matter? Then you have to step back and like, it does matter.
It matters. Yeah, even if it doesn't matter to you, it matters to your partner.
Yeah.
And
I'm not trying to be an
matters.
ass about it, but it's like, does it matter? Like, it does matter. All right, so that will make me a better person, so I should just do it. Not just because I want to be a better person, but just fucking do it. Like, it'll make her better. It'll make us better. It'll make us function better. So it just makes it easier, too. Life will be better.
Sure.
You know?
What are some, like, key things that, without, like, going too personal into your relationship, but, like, what are some key things that really have worked for you guys, that have kept you guys happy, that has kept the spark and everything too? Because you got to have the romantic aspect of it as well. But yeah, definitely emotional support, I'm sure.
Emotional support for sure. Listening with intent. So not being focused on your phone or whatever it is. Sometimes you have to be an ass and kick the person and say, hey, listen, like I need you right now. Or whether it's taking the time out to be away from the kids, that's important. Talking to a real adult.
Yes.
That's really good, man. What else has been good for us? Just being fun. You know, kind of, my wife is good at being a teen again, and just having that first time we met type of love. I don't lose it, but I'm like, okay, this is the next shit that needs to go. Or I want to see her at her next level and what she's doing for work or whatever it may be. So I'm focusing on that. And she's like, I want to pinch her butt. It's like, God, no, I get it. But then, you know, it just moves over to some other shit. And it's like, all right, fine, you know.
Yeah.
But just giving in to those things, you just have to grow with it. You got to go with it, man.
It's true.
But it's the balance thing at the end of the day.
It is.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what I've like learned, is that just everything is the balance. It's all about the balance. That was something that I learned from my previous relationship, was that I learned all about how I communicate, and I was not doing a good enough job learning how she communicated. And so there would be times where she would get mad at me and I wouldn't even know why. I'd be like, I don't even know where this is coming from.
Welcome, my friend, to manhood. No,
no, but like I wouldn't even understand. I'm like, well, what are you mad at? And, you know, then she would tell me later, like, oh, I felt like, you know, we were always doing what you wanted to do. And I felt like it was something that just felt like I was always giving in. Meanwhile, what she didn't understand, I think this is actually a larger point that I want to make, is communicating your sacrifice. Because I never communicated how much of a sacrifice it was for me to hang out with her all the time. But I wanted to. I chose to make that decision. It was like conscious. I wanted to make that sacrifice. But it was in lieu of me doing the podcast, or it was in lieu of me doing these other things. And because my schedule is the way that it was, and also still is, I don't have a lot of flexibility. So when I was making that time for her, then if we ended up doing things that maybe I wanted to do, or like was more convenient for me, which probably admittedly was, right? Where it was like, hey, this is just easier for me to, like, let's hang out on this day and let's do this thing, that I wasn't realizing that she was feeling not heard. And part of it was that she didn't communicate that effectively to me either. So I didn't know until it would blow up and be a thing.
It's all about communication, man. It's tough, though. It's tough. Regardless of who it is, it could be your mom, it could be your brother.
Yes.
Relationships, communication are all key, but it's just the point of how you approach it and what lens you're approaching it through. So if you're already offended about something, you're bringing it to the table, the shit's gonna blow up regardless. That's just it.
Yeah, because you're not seeing it clear.
No.
Yeah, you're seeing it with that little bias on top of it. Yeah, so that was something that was really powerful that I hope to move forward with future relationships, is really learning how the other person listens and communicates, aside from how I do. I think I know now myself, I know how I communicate. So it's a matter of making sure that I'm always adjusting to the other person as well, and making sure that they feel heard, because I don't want another problem like that where I don't know what's happening, and all of a sudden, like, I'm in a fight that I don't even know where it came from.
It's compromising, but not compromising to the stake of a detriment to yourself.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, there's a balance. Like, I shouldn't be giving in all the time either. You know, it's definitely a give and take. And learning what is a sacrifice for the other person and learning what's a sacrifice for you allows you to understand when it is a more balanced equation. Because if, you know, somebody else's sacrifice is a different definition than your sacrifice, then you might find that they're sacrificing way more, even though it doesn't feel that way to you, because you're looking at it from your lens and your perspective. You're not seeing it as like, well, them not doing that isn't even a sacrifice. You know, if you're seeing it like that, well, then that's already wrong.
People don't go into relationships or business or whatever it may be with that notion, you know. They just get into it and it is what it is, and they're going through all the lanes of love and an up and a down and a defeat and whatever, but they're not going through like, what does this really mean to you? What define this, you know? And then once you define what X and Y is, then you can really say like, oh, well, we have two different completely views about this shit. So no wonder
why there's a disconnect.
So now we can actually talk on the same level.
At what point in a relationship do you feel like you can actually have that kind of honest conversation? Like how early on is...
Immediately.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but meaning like realistically with how dating works and everything, most people don't want to show who they really are right away. They want to protect themselves.
Yeah, I get it. Knock it out after the first 3 months stand, I guess.
Yeah.
But try to get it done as soon as possible, because if you hold it over for the longest and then you move in with somebody, that's when you start to find out who they really are. And then shit's fucked up and you're like, well, I spent this much time, might as well just stick around. No, it just doesn't work. It can't say that it doesn't work out, but it's just not best for you. It creates something toxic.
Yes.
You become toxic for each other and it just doesn't work.
Yes. And that was exactly what happened with my last relationship, where we started off and it was awesome, but then we didn't learn how each other's way of living was.
Yeah.
And I think I now have a greater context for that since we've broken up. But like, you really learn that about somebody as you look through that lens. But I didn't have the experience. That was my first real relationship. So for me, I had literally no baseline of like what it's like to not take care of a woman, because, you know, a woman could take care of herself, but meaning like, you know, take care from my side of it on the relationship. I didn't even know what that meant.
Emotional needs, language needs, all that. Yeah.
Yes, and there was a language barrier on top of it, you know.
That doesn't help,
Yeah, I mean, I speak Spanish, but it wasn't like I'm as fluent as her, and she was having to speak in English all the time. And that's hard. I've tried to like speak in Spanish a lot, and it's hard. It's literally like an active translation thing. So I think now that I've had like enough distance and I'm so removed from the emotion of it, I have such an appreciation for her and like the amount of sacrifices that she did make. And again, it wasn't communicated well enough to me, you know. And when she did tell me. I'm not going to say she didn't, because she did tell me in multiple instances, but I didn't understand what that meant. That was then my fault. Yeah. I didn't really get it. And now I get it. Now I totally get it. And so I apologize, Deanna. I'm sorry. But it was just like, it was one of those where I didn't have the experience. I wasn't equipped. And then our situation was that she was on a temporary visa. So it created even more pressure and even more like, where is this going to go?
Yeah.
Is this going to go anywhere? What are we doing? Because, you know, we were both feeling intense emotions for each other, but
that's
then
a lot
also
of pressure, man.
Yeah, but then we knew that there was like an end date, and I don't know why I got myself into that, but I couldn't help it. It wasn't on purpose. You know, I clicked with her in a way that I never clicked with anybody prior to that. So to me, it made sense to want to be in a relationship with her, because I was like, damn, this girl's awesome. And she is and was, right? So it's like, you know, I have no regrets about the whole experience. You know, I learned so much from it. So it's interesting to hear from you, because you are in... And
it'll continuously happen, though. There will always be times where we don't not see eye, but we just... You can say something, I hear it totally different, though.
Yes.
You know, so sometimes we learn that we have to repeat it back. So this is what you're saying. No, that's not what I said. What the fuck did you hear? You know? So sometimes you have to do it. I think that's a good practice. That helped us early on.
Yeah.
We're not consistent with it, but when we do it, we get back where we need to be, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're evolving. You know, we're not the same people we were 5 years ago.
Can't be.
So now that we're going back and forth, and it's like, well, damn, I am holding you to a certain level that you were prior that I shouldn't, and I need to step back, get with myself and say, don't do that shit. And then go back and apologize and go forth from there.
No, that's awesome, man. That's like... See, this is why I love fucking talking to you, man, because I feel like I just learned some shit right here.
I'm still learning. It's not perfected.
No, for sure. And I'm not even saying that it is for you. And I think we both share that perspective of knowing that, you know, it's never finished. We're always willing to learn more. We're always open to new experiences, to seeing things in a different way. And I think just being open to the experience is going to make you more able to deal with the uncertainty of life. You know,
I guess.
Dealing with ambiguity, right?
Oh man, here you go again.
I know, sorry. But dealing with ambiguity is actually like a real thing. You really do, like, everything in life is uncertain. So having the flexibility to adjust to whatever the situation is and allow the internal part of you to be okay, to like make sure that
Accepting the gray.
no matter what else is happening, that you're solid here. And I posted a quote from Sadhguru where he talks about how, you know, succumbing to everyone else's feelings, that's a form of slavery. It really is. Like, you're a slave to everyone else. Like, no.
That's funny. I was just going to say something similar to that. So where some people are okay with the feeling, but it's the okay to the feeling that the validation from others. So they're still fighting the battle, you know? Like, they feel okay about it, so I should too, right? I'm good. Or they feel this certain way, and now I think I feel good because they feel better. No, why is it always they? What about you?
Mm-hmm. The only validation that you're ever really going to find is in yourself. And then, you know, any validation you get from other people, it's temporary, it's fleeting, it's conditional more often than not. And to rely on something that's so conditional, you know, when the love for yourself is unconditional. And from that, back to Revenge of the Dreamers, you know, self-love, that song, I love that song.
Yeah.
Because it's like, self-love is the best love. And then she says, your love is the worst drug. And meaning, like, she must be talking about a toxic relationship, I think. But really, self-love is the best love. The love that you have for yourself is the most pure, and it's not conditional. You should, or at least it can be. But that's not a healthy way of looking at it. It should be unconditional. You should love yourself no matter what. And that doesn't mean that you can't be hard on yourself sometimes. That doesn't mean that you can't go easy on yourself sometimes. But that overall love of, like, I love me. You know, it doesn't mean I love everything I do, right?
Yeah. But I love me.
But I love me. I love who I am. That doesn't mean that I have to love everything I do.
I love me, I love who I am, and I love who I am becoming. Because sometimes the you are isn't who you want to be, but you have to, if you're consciously working at it, then you'll consistently love yourself, I think. You know?
I agree. Dude, 100%. Yeah, I felt that. So how do you set your goals and achieve them? Like, what is your process when you, let's say you can create like a really simple example. So maybe don't do some grandiose goal, but like, let's say you have a small goal and you know you want to accomplish it. How do you tend to break down that task?
I see it. I work backwards. All right. I know that's what it is. This is what it takes to get there, or maybe this doesn't. And then I go from, once I clear on the backwards format of it, then I just start going step by step, you know? And sometimes if it's something that I'm just really unclear about and I just don't know, or there's some steps that I'm just not sure in the middle, I ask somebody, hey, I need some advice. What's going on with this? How do I navigate this? How have you done this before? Have you done this before? Get a little bit of feedback, whatever it is. All right, go from there, execute. I'm very analytical, so I try to always have the process and a second process of the process and a third process of that process, because I want to know, I want to get it done regardless of what happens in the middle, because it's all part of the journey, but I want to get it done. That's just it. That's the final. Sure.
So it sounds like you like to break down to the fundamentals of what it is. So there's going to be some like structural thing. There's going to be some basic steps involved, and there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And so, you know, then from like a 360 view, kind of what the situation is. This is the premise of how I need to get there, and then this is where I want to end up.
But I also accept that there's gray area, because this is just the world we live in, and then some shit may just happen out of the ordinary, out of the blue, and it will help me or not help get to that. So I accept that as well, and I'm okay with it. You know, I think when shit like that hits the fan and you're not ready for it, we're never ready. But when you're not prepared for it, it just doesn't. It mentally fucks you up.
Yeah.
You know?
So having that flexibility. Yeah. Dealing with ambiguity.
Yeah. You're right.
I mean, yeah,
that's the truth.
It is what it comes down to, because there's just always going to be those variables. You know, the universe is a random ass place. The fact that we exist should be proof of that. Okay, why are we even here?
Yeah,
you know,
trying to figure that shit out, dude. As a kid, like, am I an alien or am I real? Who really created me? Yeah, all that shit, dude. That started the journey too. You know, just trying to figure it out. Yeah. You know,
how do you like to explore those questions? Like, do you read books? Do you watch like movies or documentaries? Or
I'll read a little something here and there, or I may listen to a podcast, or I may be listening to someone Of course, I go on YouTube and get some shit here, and then
Sure.
it sends me on a rabbit hole, and then I go further into whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like having we just call them just kick sessions, but me and the guys we just talk.
Mm-hmm.
We may bring up basketball, then the next 5 minutes later, we're talking about some deep level.
Yeah.
How do you be a good father? Or, you just
Yeah.
mix every type of thing in there, and you get different perspectives because everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really good to just have those conversations, being vulnerable, but then knowing when to say, all right, that's kind of personal. I don't want to open that part of it, but just knowing when to cap it, man, that's important.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, Brene Brown, knowing like who's earned your vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain things that you can probably be vulnerable with everybody with, and then there are other things that the people got to earn that level of intimacy.
Some people are just open about it all.
Sure.
And that's not a problem.
That's not a problem.
It is what it is.
No.
Some people
It ain't
just
no problem. It ain't no problem. It ain't no problem. It ain't no problem.
But yeah, but once you come to grips with knowing where your line, boundaries are important.
Mm-hmm.
All relationship, even with yourself, boundaries are important. So knowing that boundary line, so you don't overstep it.
How'd you create the boundary for yourself?
Learning, just figuring it, just bumping into shit, learning lessons. Don't want to get burned again, man.
What was an experience where you crossed that boundary for yourself and you learned that you needed to create that?
College, man, that was a big step. Wanting to be away, just knowing that if I was away, I would be by myself. Of course, I went with my friends, so it was perfect. Like, these are my boys, they have my back.
Mm-hmm.
But we learned so much, man. Just getting too high and fucking up, or just being reckless, man.
Yeah.
Our main focus was make sure we had our bills paid.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we were just reckless kids, man. Just learning it. So just learning those lessons of having too many parties and being the assholes who had the sprinkler system fuck up the whole building.
Oh no.
Well, it really wasn't us. It was our roommate. He decided
what had happened was,
so we were all playing pranks on each other. He decided to put somebody's clothes on that the little water thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you pull it down, it tripped it, and there were about, I don't know, I could be wrong, but 100 gallons is wrong. 100,000 gallons, whatever. We were on the 3rd floor, so the 1st and the 2nd floors had to have their carpet replaced. So did we. That's a lot of fucking water. I was the building next door, just doing whatever I was doing in college, and heard something. I got a phone call, came outside, and you could just hear water gushing down.
No.
It was terrible. I didn't stay in my apartment for a month because it smelled terrible.
No.
Yeah.
And like, what about like people's electronics?
I don't.
Fucked.
Yeah, the guy, he had to pay a lot of money.
I was gonna say, did people cover it? Like,
the guy had to pay a lot. His mom had to pay a lot of money.
oh fuck.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
He
the
didn't
amount
get
of
sued
money.
or anything, but his mom had to pay a lot of money.
Did she have the money to pay it?
He had to work another job. Yeah.
Damn.
It was. Yeah. It
That's a
became
fucking hard lesson to learn, though.
Yeah.
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 Don't be reckless.
No.
Yeah.
Don't be reckless.
But when you're young, you're allowed to make mistakes.
You should.
You're allowed to be like reckless, and not that you should be on purpose.
No,
but
not on
that
purpose.
You're gonna just be reckless, especially young men.
Take the chances. Take the risk.
Yep.
Especially if you can bounce back from it early.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Don't just do some shit that's just dire. You're gonna, I don't want to say die from it, but you know what I mean. Just don't take the dire risk. Have some probability there. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Sure.
But that's how you create your boundary. You know what? This isn't for me. I don't like it, so I'm not gonna do it. I smoked too much one time. Got a little paranoid about some shit. It's like, you know what? I don't know what I was smoking, so maybe I need to dial back.
Mm-hmm.
Dial back. Still not working. Maybe it's something going on with me. Let me just take it away.
Yeah.
And figure things out back, build things up in a stepping stone. Okay, maybe I can try this. Okay, cool. I can take maybe 5 hits and be good. I didn't know who I'm around. That type of stuff. So you create those boundaries.
Set and setting.
Yeah.
It applies more than psychedelics, I think, in everything.
100%.
Yeah.
Anything, but that's where I had to have my first experience that I really was cognitive of it. Like, okay, boundaries is it. Because some shit is not working. I need to figure it out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really cool, man. Because, that's something that sometimes can take 30 years to learn. It can take 40 years to learn.
Yeah.
It depends on your life experience and the things that you run into, and also how conscious and aware are you in that time. At what point do you feel like you leveled up your awareness where you were like, okay, now I'm like actually aware of what's going on? Because there's like a certain level where it's like your minimum. Like, I would argue that I became fully aware of what's really going on after my first acid trip. That was like when I was like, oh shit.
How old were you?
21.
21?
It was on my 21st birthday. So it was like, after that moment, I was like, oh, this is what reality is. People living their lives. Are you familiar with, what's it called? damn, now I'm going to forget the word. But I learned, sonder. I learned this word in college, and I had this realization while getting high with my friend Russell, who I'd love to have on the podcast because he's hilarious. But we learned of the concept of the word, and it was about your realization that everybody else has a unique universe and a life and an experience, and that, you know, like our metaphor that we use is that kind of like we're all monkeys, like we're just glorified monkeys, really.
Yeah.
You know, we're big like hairless apes. And so we kind of had that realization in our freshman year of college. And that was probably my first like waking up to some degree of like, oh shit, that's right. Everybody else kind of has their own life, and they all have their own things going on. And, you know, because when you grow up as a kid, everything's all about you, and your parents certainly will reinforce that usually too.
Hell
of
yeah.
like, yeah, it's all about you, and I'm here for you. Meanwhile, they know that there's
a
other
whole
things going on
world out there, man.
But they want to make you feel like,
but they're protecting you from it too.
They're
at
trying
some
to protect you.
Trying.
And I mean, I think you should protect people to an extent, and then at a certain point, you got to let them learn.
100%, yeah. But I would say, not really knowing between 14 and 18, but when it really got serious, maybe like 19, 20.
Sure.
Because 14, 15, I had a good idea of, all right, these are my friends. They may be distant because they're doing whatever, but they have their own thing going on. But I need to reach back out and stay in contact. And these are my cousins, and these are my family that I need to reach in contact. So I'm good at that. And, But then it's like, all right, they have their own world, boom. But then it got deep, and it's like, okay, I just had a moment. I'm away. What do I do? How do I get all this shit and tangle into one? It's like, why am I so focused on it? Then you get into the whole spiral of whatever, and then you figure out, all right, this is it. Everybody has their own world. I got to come to grips with what I have in my world, and then whatever happens, happens. If we can catch back up in this little meantime, you know, it takes 3 months, cool, fine. If not, whatever, we'll figure it out 6 months down the line. You know, just being cool with that and just accepting.
Yeah, 100%. That's cool. That's cool when you get to that level, because that's like the first step in waking up, is having that realization.
I'm woke now.
Yeah, stay woke, dude. But like after you hit that point of that minimum waking up, then the rest of it, if you decide to keep going down the rabbit hole, that's where you get the most rewarding experiences. That's where then I would argue that you pull the most out of each experience once you are more conscious and more aware of what is actually happening. You see reality as it unfolds in a more objective way, less tied to your own personal feelings about how things are going. You know, if you were, I was listening to a Joe Rogan episode, and I think it was a Joe Rogan episode, where he was talking about, you know, somebody's view of, if I got fired from this job, you know, like I hated this job and they didn't pay me enough, blah, blah, blah. And that's their perspective. Then you ask the company, it's like, yeah, that dude sucked. He never showed up. He was a horrible team player. You know, it's like, you can't get too caught up in your own framing of things, because not everything's out to get you. Not everything's out to help you either. You know, everything's kind of indifferent. There's like a very neutral element to everything, and then
there's some black and white to it, but there's some gray, and you have to just know.
Yes. Oh yeah, and there's some structural, like, you know, there's institutional racism, and there's other shit that's larger than you. But what I'm saying is that like a lot of things are inherently neutral, and obviously, there are specific things that aren't, and those are systematic problems that I think as a society we need to fix and hold people in power accountable to. And you know, I'll fucking rail against the establishment all day, baby. I want a revolution. Political one, not a physical one. But really, you know, there are a lot of things are kind of neutral. And if you color it with it's trying to help me, or, oh, this negative thing that happened to me is trying to help me, even if it's not objectively true, you can make that shit really true later.
You can make it a reality. Yeah.
You can make it a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where people get confused of like, perception's reality, so therefore if I think it, you know, then it's real. It's like, no, that's not what that means.
No.
Yeah. What it means is that like your perception on how you want to take things can then determine your reality later.
Like we've been saying this whole thing, the lens, your perspective, that's exactly what you see and feel, but it may not be exactly what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But you can make it work for you.
Oh, yeah. It can go good or bad.
Yeah. It really can, dude. This has been awesome, man. This has been a good podcast. I don't want to hold you too long because I feel like I've already kept you super long. But
it's all good, man.
But no, thank you so much for coming on, Terrance. We'll definitely have you on again. And
I'm down.
Yeah, I look forward to doing more.
Cool.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.